Hey friends, it's Tomer, and today we're going to be looking at the brand new Dominaria United box topper cards that were previewed today on August 20th and yesterday on the 19th. These are part of the 28 Legends Retold cards. These are cards that are basically remasters of old cards from the Legends set. But before we look at the cards, two quick reminders. First, if you want to see all the Dominaria preview cards as they're being released, you can head on over to mtgpreviews.com to see the full list at any given time. And second, if you want to pre-order these sweet new Dominaria United cards, you can head on over to our sponsor, cardkingdom.com/mtggoldfish, and be sure to ask for a scoop sticker in the order notes. Alright, let's jump into the cards, starting with my all-time favorite box topper card from the entire set, Tetsuo Imperial Champion. Tetsuo is a reimagining of Tetsuo Umezawa from the original Legends set. It could tap to destroy target tapped creature or target blocking creature. Not very good, kind of expensive, but lore-wise, this is one of my favorite characters because it was a mere human mortal who managed to kill Nicol Bolas pre-mending at his all-time height of power. So he's a really cool character lore-wise, and finally, we get a card that actually shows off how badass he is. Tetsuo Imperial Champion is a 3-mana Grixis creature, 3/3 legendary creature, human samurai, that says whenever Tetsuo attacks, if it's equipped, choose one. Either Tetsuo deals damage equal to the highest mana value among equipments attached to it to any target, or you may cast an instant or sorcery spell from your hand with mana value less than or equal to the highest mana value among equipment attached to Tetsuo without paying its mana cost. So this is a cool, unique Grixis commander who is focused on both having equipment on him and also casting instances of sorceries and blending the two together in a way we've never seen before. So what do we do with Tetsuo? I think he's going to be best as the commander as opposed to something in the 99, and we can use his abilities two different ways. So we can equip him with Basilisk Collar to make his targeted damage ability lethal to any target creature by giving it Death Touch, so just any amount of damage just kills it, and Lifelink, so he gains life in the process. Or if we deal damage to kill a creature with Scythe of the Wretched on him, then we just return that creature onto the battlefield under our control, which is really sweet. Or finally, we could exile the creature that we kill, and then make a 2/2 zombie creature token with Unscythed Killer of Kings. In terms of instants or sorceries that we can cheat out, we could focus on having a big high-cost equipment like Embercleave or Cauldron Complete on Tetsuo to cast big spells, but I think the true spice is actually going to be casting the pseudo-zero mana cost suspend cards like Ancestral Vision, Inevitable Betrayal, and Profane Tutor. Generally, you can't actually cast these spells from your hand, you have to suspend them and cast them that way, but Tetsuo gets around that and lets you cast Ancestral Vision for 0 mana to draw 3 cards, which is fantastic, or you can Inevitable Betrayal, which is a 0 mana bribery, or Profane Tutor, which is a 0 mana demonic tutor. So these are going to be the best of the best options to cheat into play with the second mode. And finally, since Tetsuo is also a samurai, we can take advantage of certain samurai synergy. Goto lets us search a library for an equipment card and put it onto the battlefield, which is great with Tetsuo because it wants to be equipped. And whenever Goto attacks for the first time each turn, you untap it and all samurai you control, so you gain an additional combat phase with both Goto and Tetsuo, which means another combat triggered ability with Tetsuo. Or if Heiko Yamazaki's on the battlefield, you can attack with Tetsuo and then immediately get back an artifact card from your graveyard. And if you want to be really cheeky, you can protect Tetsuo with Oathkeeper, Takino's Daisho, and that will protect him from any targeted removal or any board wipe. However, I found in personal practice, I've used this in Toshiro before, this is a great target for your opponents to just destroy with artifact removal, and then you lose not just Oathkeeper, but you also lose Tetsuo, which is a Savage 2-for-1. So while very flavorful and can be a good payoff, I personally haven't had a great experience with it. Alright, moving on, we have the Lady of Otaria, which is a remaster of the Lady of the Mountain, which was just a 6-mana Gruul 5/5 with no card text. This version, however, is actually Dwarf Tribal. So this is a 5-mana 5/5 legendary creature avatar that says you may tap 3 untapped dwarves you control rather than pay this spell's mana cost. So you have an alternate way to just tap 3 dwarves and then pay no mana to get this 5/5 on the battlefield. And at the beginning of each end step, if a land you control was put into your graveyard from the battlefield this turn, reveal the top 4 cards of your library. put any number of dwarf cards from among them into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. So what are we doing with this? Obviously, we're doing dwarf tribal. So typically, we don't see many green dwarves, and I checked, and there's like one or two, and they're pretty bad. However, the Lady of Otaria is a fantastic inclusion for certain red staples, such as Dwarven Recruiter, which can stack the top 4 cards of your library, or all the cards in your library, with dwarves. So you're gonna always get 4 cards off the top with the Lady of Otaria. And by the way, to trigger her ability to just get something, a land into your graveyard, just run all the fetch lands you can. That's the easiest way to trigger it every single time. Magda Brazen Outlaw is going to be a fantastic inclusion with Otaria as well, because you could actually tap dwarves and make treasures just to cast your commander as well. And if you want to just have a 7 dwarves commander deck and you don't feel like having Magda as the commander, you could just run 7 dwarves in the Lady of Otaria. In terms of what's the best dwarf tribal leader, I think it still is far and away going to be Magda Brazen Outlaw. This is just the most explosive, most high-powered dwarf tribal deck you can run, and it's even CDH viable. However, if you want a toned-down version of dwarf tribal, maybe if you want to take it at a lower-powered table, for example, I think the Lady of Otaria brings a ton to dwarf tribal, is going to really perform very well, but is going to be just less powerful than Magda, which might be something that you're interested in. Next up, we got Torsten, founder of Benalia, which is another throwback to another just vanilla creature, Torsten von Ursus, which was a Selesnya 5/5 with no card text whatsoever. This one also keeps in line with its color identity. It's also Selesnya, and even increases the mana cost. Now it's 5, 1 green, and 1 white, so 7 mana total. 7 mana for a 7/7 legendary creature, Human Soldier. When it enters the battlefield, reveal the top 7 cards of your library, put any number of creature and or land cards from among them into your hand, and the rest at the bottom of your library in a random order. And when it dies, create 7 white 1/1 soldier creature tokens. So it's a 7 mana, 7/7 that looks at the top 7 cards, puts them all into your hand if they're all creatures and or lands, and when it dies, it makes 7 tokens. So there's definitely a theme here going around. I think Torsten is one of the strongest box toppers we've seen yet. Its enter the battlefield trigger essentially allows you to draw up to 7 cards. So imagine if you're in a deck that's just all creatures and lands. You're going to draw 7 cards every single time it re-enters the battlefield. So what are we doing with Torsten? Honestly, I think it's going to be great either as the commander of its own deck or as part of the 99 of basically any sort of flicker blink style deck. Obviously, it's going to be great with creatures that can blink Torsten, so Flicker Wisp and Emil the Blessed are going to be fantastic with it. And also, if you just don't want to go all in on creatures and lands, there are ways to stack the top of your library with a bunch of creatures, for example, like Congregation at Dawn can put 3 creatures from your library on top of it for Torsten to guarantee hit on it. So I think this is going to be a deck that's focused primarily on the enter the battlefield trigger just because it's such an insane card advantage. I would imagine decks are going to be almost entirely creatures and lane cards with some spice like Congregation and Dawn to make sure your hits are always going to be the cards you want every single time, and definitely go for the flicker theme. Moving on, we got Ayesha Tanaka, Armorer, which is a throwback to a very bizarre Legends creature, Ayesha Tanaka, an Azorius 2/2 of Banding, and it can tap to do something. I don't know, that's a lot of text that I'm not going to read. I'm going to read the new card. This is a 5 mana Azorius creature, 3, 1 white, 1 blue for a 2/4 legendary creature, Human Artificer, that says whenever it attacks, look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may put any number of artifact cards with mana value less than or equal to Ayesha's power from among them onto the battlefield tapped. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. And Ayesha can't be blocked as long as the defending player controls 3 or more artifacts. So if your opponent just is not in green and has like a bunch of mana rocks, or maybe it has some artifact lands, Ayesha's going to be unblockable attacking them, which is fantastic for something that starts as a 2/4 and has a very powerful attack trigger. And her attack trigger is insane card advantage. You can basically hit up to 4 artifacts off top of your library and put them directly onto the battlefield immediately if Ayesha's power is high enough. So she has the potential to be a very high card advantage and mana advantage engine. However, you do have to work hard for it. There are a lot of hoops for this. So how are we going to take advantage of Ayesha? I think it's going to be a blend of Azorius Voltron. You're going to take advantage of cards or equipments that can seriously pump up her power, so every artifact that you hit, you're going to immediately put onto the battlefield. Blackblade Reforged is a fantastic way of pumping up her power to make sure that any artifact you see with her ability, you get to immediately put onto the battlefield. Hammer Nazan is another way to make sure that all the equipments that you put directly onto the battlefield can immediately equip onto her. And notably, the artifacts that you hit with her ability aren't excluding lands. So stuff like Razortide Bridge, artifact lands, I think there's at least 4, I think 5 in Azorius colors. There's a Razortide Bridge, there's Ancient Den, there's Seat of the Signon, there's Darkseal Citadel, and I think Treasure Vault or something like that. Those can just be put directly onto the battlefield, so Ayesha's ability can actually be a land ramp as well. So while Ayesha is a 5-mana commander, and she does have a lot of hoops to jump through, her payoff is very good. Is she an insane busted commander? No, but she is a fantastic mana and card advantage engine if properly built around. Alright, moving on, we have Rasputin, the Oneiromancer? I have no idea. Comment section, let me know how you would pronounce this word. But this is a throwback, a reimagining of the original Rasputin Dreamweaver, which was actually a fairly popular commander back when I started playing around 2011. It's an old school commander that kind of still holds up and has some cool combos to it. It was a 6-mana Azorius that essentially, when it entered the battlefield, it had 7 dream counters on it, and you could remove those dream counters to add 1 to your mana pool. So it enabled some blink shenanigans, and it enabled some game-winning combos as well. I mean, it still does to this day. The new version no longer costs 6 mana. It's now just a 3-mana Azorius creature, still a 4/1, and it still enters the battlefield with dream counters on it, 1 for each opponent you have. So in a 4-player game, you're going to get 3 dream counters, and each opponent creates a 1/1 red goblin creature token. And it has 2 active abilities. The first ability is you tap it, remove 1 or more dream counters from Rasputin to add that much colorless mana. And you can also tap it to remove a dream counter to create a 2/2 white knight creature token with protection from red. So just like the original version, this is a mana ramp outlet. You're going to be primarily using Rasputin to generate a bunch of colorless mana. This time, you're not making 7. You can make basically 3 at a time before you need to blink Rasputin again. And you are giving your opponents 1/1 goblin creature tokens, but I really don't count that as that much of a downside. Just like you don't count Beast Within, the Beast token you make for an opponent, really a downside in Commander. It's very minimal. However, I would say that Rasputin, the original, is a lot easier to combo off with and break, while this one is kind of a more reliable, because it's just 3 mana instead of 6, more reliable just mana generator in Azorius colors. So what do we do with Rasputin? Well, we're going to be doing basically the same thing we do with the original, except more fair and more reliable because it's a 3-mana version. So whenever you run out of dream counters, you can blink Rasputin, give your opponents more goblins, and get more dream counters on him with stuff like Eldrazi Displacer. And if you really want to still combo with him, you can still find some lines such as Rasputin, Eldrazi Displacer, 1,000-Year Elixir, and Amulet of Vigor for a very convoluted way of basically infinite blinking Rasputin. And then if you have some sort of enter the battlefield triggered ability that wins you the game, or leave the battlefield triggered ability that wins you the game, so like a 5th piece, you can win the game, like Alter the Brood. You could throw an Alter the Brood and mill your opponents out with a 5th piece on this. Not a great combo, but it's there. I would say this version of Rasputin is probably weaker than the original. It is more reliable, it's more fair, it's less combo-y, but at the same time, it is, because the combos are a little bit more convoluted, I would say this is a weaker version, and I don't know, maybe the payoff isn't really worth it. However, just playing a Rasputin on turn 3, and then turn 4, you play a 4th land or whatever, and then you tap this to add 3 more mana, you can drop a 7-drop on turn 4 or something like that. That's pretty good. So I wouldn't count that out for just like fair ramping out in Azorius. It's not the worst. But moving on, we have the Ever-Changing Dane, which is a throwback to Half Dane, an Esper creature that can become copies of other target creatures, except he's going to be half their size. or something like that. I don't know. It's weird. But the new version is 1 white, 1 blue, 1 black. So 3 mana, 3/3 Esper creature, legendary creature, shapeshifter, and it has a powerful activated ability. Pay 1, sacrifice another creature. The Ever-Changing Dane becomes a copy of the sacrificed creature, except it has this ability. So you sacrifice a creature, you become a copy of it. It doesn't become half the power and toughness or any of that stuff, as the flavor text implies. He's going to be a full copy of it this time, a full proper copy. But this time, you do have to sacrifice another creature, which therefore means you have to have that creature under your control. However, this opens up some really cool opportunities for deck building. I imagine the Dane being used as basically a theft style deck where you can use stuff like Chamber of Manipulation and Dominating Will to temporarily steal your opponent's creatures, and then instead of returning them at end step, you can just sacrifice them to the Dane, and not only have you taken care of multiple creatures repeatedly with Chamber of Manipulation, for example, but now your Dane is a cooler creature on the battlefield, so that's pretty cool. And other things you can do is you can take advantage of certain leave the battlefield triggers. For example, Wormfang Mantra has a enter the battlefield ability where you skip your next turn. However, when it leaves the battlefield, you can take an extra turn after this one. So you can play the Manta, and then you can sacrifice it to the Dane. You take an extra turn, and then when you sacrifice the Dane or you blink the Dane, for example, you take another extra turn. So there are shenanigans you can build around this. This is a very cool commander. It's very open-ended, and I'm really curious to see what people come up with in terms of cool tech for this very unique Esper commander. All right, next up we have an Archer tribal commander, Ohabi Caleria, which is a throwback to Lady Caleria, which was a high-cost Selesnya 3/6 archer type thing that could tap to deal 3 damage to target attacking or blocking creature. The new version is sleek. It's 3 mana instead of 7 Selesnya creature. 1/3 for a legendary creature archer. It has reach, as all archers should. And it says untap all archers you control during each other player's untap step, which is fantastic because most of your archers are going to tap to deal damage. So this is a great way to deal more damage on more people's turns. And then it has whenever an archer you control deals damage to a creature, you may pay 2. If you do, draw a card. Everybody loves drawing cards, so this is fantastic support for Archer Tribal. So how do we use Ohabi? Well, Archer Tribal, right? Archer Tribal is kind of non-existent. The only Archer Tribal card that I could find was Greatbow Doyen, which is a 5 mana elf archer that gives other archers +1/+1, and it says when it deals damage to a creature, that archer deals that much damage to its controller, so it kind of doubles up on the damage. And there's other powerful archers like Bridget, but honestly, the archers are kind of lame, I would say, and there's not a lot of support for them. So I would probably go like Changeling Tribal. This could be a really cool inclusion in a untap tap shenanigans Changeling Tribal deck. And you can also take advantage of your archers in different ways too, because you're going to be untapping them on each player's untap step. You can really take advantage of cards like Crippleth Right. So you can tap your archers for mana and then untap them on your opponent's turn, so you can still use them on your opponent's turns as well. So that's some cool ways, cool tech of using Ohabi as well, if you do go Archer Tribal or Tribal, as I prefer. But yeah, moving on, we have another spicy card that I think is going to be very good in Changing Tribal, but also in both Dragon Tribal and Kobold Tribal. This is Rohgahh Kher Overlord, which is a throwback of Rohgahh of Kher, a Rakdos commander that was a 5/5, and it was actually kind of decent. It gave all your kobolds of Kher, which is 1 card +2/+2. It had an upkeep cost, and okay, I take it back. It wasn't very good. The new version is actually very good, though. This is a 5 mana Rakdos commander, 3 1 black 1 red for a 4/4 legendary creature kobold warrior that says other kobolds you control get +2/+2. Whenever you cast a kobold spell, you may pay 2 mana. If you do, create a 4/4 red dragon creature token with flying. Whenever you cast a dragon spell, create a 0/1 kobold creature token named Kobolds of Kher. So, whenever you're casting kobolds, you can make some dragons. Whenever you're casting dragons, you can make some Kobolds of Kher. Very nice, and your kobolds get bigger. So this does a lot for 5 mana. It's on the expensive side, it is 5 mana, but it does everything your kobolds want to be doing, and it really helps out Dragon Tribal kind of at the same time too. It gives you some cool stuff as bonuses for both tribes. So what do I expect to do with Rohgahh? Well, I think it's an obvious inclusion in Prosh, Sky Raider of Kher. I know most people forgot that Prosh is in the format. It used to be a boogeyman of the format, I swear. Before Korvold was printed, Prosh was very scary in Jund. It's still very good though, even to this day, and it makes a bunch of kobolds, named Kobolds of Kher Keep, no doubt, whenever you cast it. And Rohgahh is now going to pump up all those kobolds you made, and it's going to make a kobold when you cast Prosh as well. So I think that's going to be fantastic. But the true way that I expect Rohgahh to really shine is actually, again, tribal, because when you cast a changeling like Universal Automaton or Taurian Mauler, it's both a kobold spell and a dragon spell, so you're going to get both triggers at any given time whenever you cast a changeling. So that's going to get double dipping on the value there. So I expect this to be a nice inclusion in tribal decks, but also it's going to be a fantastic little piece of tech for all the Prosh players who still haven't switched to Korvold for some reason. I see you, I love you, I appreciate you. All right, next up, we got Xira the Golden Sting, which is a throwback to a really cool Jund legendary Xira Arian, which is a 3-mana 1/2 flyer that let you draw a card if you paid 3 mana. So not good, but interesting. And it was card draw in Jund back in the day where you couldn't just do that so easily. The new version is more mana efficient, but requires a little bit more shenanigans to get it going. This is a 4-mana Jund commander, 3/3 legendary creature, insect assassin, which I totally love, flying haste, and whenever it attacks, put an egg counter on another target creature without an egg counter on it. When that creature dies, if it has an egg counter on it, draw a card and create a 1/1 black insect creature token with flying. So, she attacks, you put an egg counter on target creature that doesn't already have it. When it dies, you finally get to draw that card and you get to make a token out of it. So you don't have to pay 3 mana, you don't have to tap her, you just have to attack, you have to kill something, you have to put an egg counter on it, you kill something, you draw a card, and you make an insect. Awesome. And very gross. So how do we use Xira the Golden Sting? I expect her as a very sweet and cool Jund commander. You can either go Insect Tribal, you can go Assassin Tribal, you can go, extra combat tribal, but I'm going to leave you with a cool combo that works with Xira. So the way this combo works is you have to have Xira and then 2 other creatures, one of which has Breath of Fury enchanted on it. You attack with both Xira and Breath of Fury, which will trigger Xira's ability and put an egg counter on the enchanted creature. Then when the enchanted creature deals combat damage to a player, you have to sacrifice it and move Breath of Fury to the other creature that's on the battlefield. This will hatch Xira's egg, drawing you a card and making a 1/1 insect creature token. Now you attack with Xira and the new enchanted creature, put an egg counter on that new enchanted creature, then move the breath counter to the insect creature you made previously, keep making insects, keep drawing cards, keep taking extra combat steps, and you win the game. Alright, so those were all the box topper cards previewed on August 20th and the 19th. I'm going to continue covering the box topper cards as they're being previewed, so be sure to like and subscribe to keep up with the latest videos. So until next time, friends, see ya!